All right, betters, I have a very special episode for y'all today. I have an interview with someone that goes by the online moniker, The Average Chris. Some of you may have heard of him, others may have not. But those of you who have heard of him are going to hear things about Chris you've never heard before. Two things in particular. One, Chris is going to reveal something about himself that nobody really knew. And it adds a lot of credibility to who he is and what he talks about online. You see, Chris is becoming a very prominent member of the UFO community, and some might deem him to be a skeptic or debunker. I don't like using those terms myself, but that is the terms that are used in this community. You see, he can be quite skeptical of a lot of the claims that are made, specifically claims made by veterans, because Chris is an Air Force veteran. And in this interview, you'll learn there's actually more to Chris than meets the eye. And the second thing about Chris that you'll find very interesting, if you've heard of him before, is that Chris has also had experiences he cannot explain. And he tells a story I've never heard him tell before, of a UFO encounter that even left him wondering what just happened, right? Something he couldn't even explain. So Chris does come from a place of understanding that there is more to our reality than what we can explain, right? And again, we start off the interview with a bang by revealing something about Chris that I think you're going to find it adds to his credibility, to be honest. Now, before we get to this interview, let me share something else about Chris that I found quite fascinating, and he was very upfront about. You see, Chris used to have a TikTok account called Paranormal Chris with over 200,000 followers, where he looked into the paranormal phenomena. Now, after interviewing Chris and talking with him more, I found out that he actually filmed a pilot for a potential TV series about the paranormal phenomena. He was kind enough to share the trailer with me. I'm going to play a short clip here before the interview starts.
Hey everybody, I'm Sandy. I live with 50 ghosts, and welcome to my home. Deep in the South, there's a place where anything can happen, where the characters are both real and surreal. I grew up around this area. When my wife Sherry and I built our dream home, we built it on an historic site just outside of Nashville. I've always been fascinated with the paranormal, so I decided to build a place that welcomed ghosts. While the house was under construction, I buried a large crystal under the entry foyer, creating a dimensional doorway. I made a deal with the ghosts. I said they were all welcome as long as they kept the bad ones away. Here's the newest member of the group, Chris. We're really glad he joined us because he seems to have a special talent for speaking with the spirits.
I'm 29. How old are you?
I really appreciate Chris being honest about his past and honestly being very frank about what he believes. And it's okay to be skeptical about claims you hear or see, even though you may have had your own experiences, right? So in this conversation, we dive into a lot of these different topics. So I hope you enjoy this interview with the average Chris. Enjoy.
What I think is, with Jeremy Corbell in these videos he's put out, most certainly are UAPTF leaks. So it's kind of a long road. But so as far as UFOs go, I've had two sad experiences. We had all just happened to look up right above the tree line, and I can still see it to this day. It's crazy. But there was this blue, I don't know what to say. Like, I don't want to, it wasn't an orb. I'm not going to call it an orb, but it's a ball of light. I think, well, and I also think he's also had a long interest in UFOs, despite what he stated on Joe Rogan. That came into play. I brought that out to the public. We had all just happened to look up right above the tree line, and I can still see it to this day. It's crazy. But there was this blue, I don't know what to say. Like, I don't want to, it wasn't an orb. I'm not going to call it an orb, but it's a ball of light. The one in Texas, still to this day, I'm not really sure about. I can't for the life of me explain it. It's been building up, so I'm just going to come out and state what I do currently in a broad sense, but I am.
He goes by the average Chris on Twitter, but I'm just going to call him Chris on this. So, Chris, welcome to the show, my man.
Thanks for having me, brother. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. And we kind of have recently been speaking a little bit, kind of didn't cross paths before, but kind of recently over some different Twitter spaces and just whatever stuff in the UFO community. We've kind of connected past, and I thought I got to see how you ran a space, and I remember thinking to myself, this is a good guy. This is the type of people we need asking questions in the community, having conversations. And I thought, man, I bet I could have a really good conversation with this guy, which is why I asked you to come on the show. And I thought, you know what? Let's just talk UFOs and aliens and whatever, and just kind of see where it goes. It seems like it's an interest to both of us. Probably have different approaches and different styles, but that's life. I look at it like flavors of food, and I love all kinds of food, right? So maybe I'm a little bit Texas barbecue, and maybe you're a little bit like, I don't know, Memphis barbecue. I don't know, Tennessee barbecue, right? I don't know,
That's
right?
a good way to put it.
Right? Yeah. Alabama white sauce
good one.
versus
That's a good way to put it.
Whatever. Anyway, yeah, man. It's a pleasure to have you on, dude, and I'm really excited you're here. You go by the average Chris online because you kind of maintain a little anonymity online, right? I'm personally I'm out there. My name, everything, my whole history, it's all out there. But I realize that you do kind of keep a little anonymity, and a lot of people do in the community, to be honest with you, and to be fair, for good reason. In a lot of ways, and you really haven't put yourself on camera very much, right? Am I correct in saying that?
Since my TikTok account, no, I have not.
Yeah.
I've done a couple of shows here and there, but nothing substantial or nothing, I would say that's consistent.
Yeah. Yeah. Right on. No, because I remember asking that thing. Are you cool with that? Can we put you on camera? Because I don't trying to think if I've done an interview where the person wasn't on camera. Yeah, I have actually. I take that back. I have. Later, the person came back on and did come on camera. But regardless, and I remember with an old musician from Uncle Walt's band, you're probably not into music, but old Texas legendary band, this guy just wouldn't go on camera. So he's like, I got to phone it in. I was like, okay, no problem. Whatever, we'll do it. But he's a legend, right? So look, Chris, we were kind of talking beforehand about a few things. And, I've always heard you speak in these spaces, and you come from like the viewpoint of, you're a veteran, right? A former military, and kind of get into some of that. What branch of the service did you serve in exactly?
Yeah, so I served in the United States Air Force from 2003 to 2007. I did a job that, really wasn't much to write about. I basically worked for Loadmasters. So it was did that for 4 years. The upside to that job is I got to travel around the world quite a bit, touch
Awesome.
foot in probably 7 or 8 different countries in that time, which I'm very fortunate. A guy from a small town in Tennessee, just never thought I'd be doing some of those things.
Yeah.
And then I got out and did some things here and there, and then like we previously talked about, I kind of it's been building up, so I'm just going to come out and state what I do currently in a broad sense. But I am an intel analyst for a branch of the Department of Defense. I'm not going to go into specifics, mainly because of what I do, and I just don't want, there's just certain things that need to stay off radar. But I do work in the intel community, and I also hold a clearance. So I'll leave it at that.
Yeah. Right on. Right on. Absolutely. Yeah. Because I think a lot of people that follow your work or in spaces with you, they're always wondering, God, how does this guy know so much? Or not even just that, like, who gives you the right to ask these questions or say these things? Like, you don't know anything, but the truth is you do. And, and you do stand on some pretty solid footing and ground, foundation for a lot of the things of where you're coming from. And honestly, a big part of what I respect about you is don't really talk outside of your knowledge or expertise, if that makes sense, right? You're very grounded in that
Right.
way, and I've always respected that, for that reason. So, and I know, me personally, I didn't know any of this right beforehand.
Mhm.
Like this was just something I didn't know. I think a lot of people don't know. So this is going to be the first time hearing this about you. But I honestly think, I know you might have been a little worried or scared about it, but I think it actually adds a lot of credibility to who you are and some of the things that you talk about, to be honest with you. So I'm glad, you were able to come out and at least say the basics here, about it.
Yeah, so I just try to just stay in my lane as far as like what I know. There's a lot that I'm ignorant to, and
Sure.
I'll be the first to admit that, right?
Sure.
But the thing is the reason why I think I like I'm not going to tout myself as being important to the community or anything, but when there's somebody that's in a field that's riddled full of intel analysts and former IC guys, counter intel like Elizondo, people in the community that have that experience can also talk out and talk to the same things that they're discussing. And like if they say they did something in a certain way and it doesn't check out, well, I could be able to say, well, to me, that's not what I've experienced. That's not how I've been taught that things work.
Yeah.
So I gotta raise a flag to that, and that's kind of just what I've been doing. But overall, I've always been interested in the subject, and I've told people plenty of times. I've had my own experiences. Some I think I've explained. There's still some that I'm like, I don't know, man. I've never really came to a definitive answer on it, and I'm just still curious.
Well, I actually didn't know that, so I'd love to get into some of that here in a minute. I didn't know that. That's very cool.
Yeah.
Um, but I
Yep.
think, a lot of times in this community, if you're someone that asks questions or pushes back a little, you're immediately just kind of ostracized and thrown on an island. And I've been there myself. I get everything. I'm a debunking channel to I'm a complete believer pushing, whatever, sensationalize everything.
Yeah.
It's like, how can I be both? I don't know how that's possible, but I think that just goes to show I'm just me. And one day I'm thinking this way, another day I'm thinking another way, and it's just kind of up or down. I mean, it's so hard. It's like it's like trying to swim under the ocean blindfolded, like no, like just trying to find. Let's just like, holy, this is hard, man. This is hard to kind of reach out, grab, and or trying to climb. Rock. I used to rock climb. Trying to rock climb blindfolded, like trying to find that it's hard. It's hard, right? And
Yeah.
sometimes you make some missteps, and whatever. But what I like hearing about all this is that in the UFO community, so many, I don't know, UFO celebrities, whatever we want to call them. There's a lot of former government, yeah,
Personalities.
personalities.
Yeah.
That's probably a better term. They're all former this, former that, whatever.
Yep.
And you rarely find, in fact, you might be the only person I could think of, to be honest with you, now hearing this about you, that is, current, but on kind of the other side, a little more asking questions, a little more, you know what I mean? Like that just, I don't know if there's anyone particularly like you in the community. And I think you're actually quite, what's the word? Like, I think you're very important to the conversation, man, to have, different people at the table, essentially, right? To have this conversation. It
Yeah.
can't just be everyone that thinks the exact same. And I like that there's different people with different opinions, different viewpoints can bring a different perspective, essentially, to it. So, yeah, I don't know. How do you feel about yourself as that kind of position, or do you see yourself like that in this?
Well, I mean, like I said, I've been interested in this stuff for a long time. I
Yeah,
mean, my favorite show growing up was X Files. So if that tells
yeah,
you anything.
yeah,
Still to this day, I'll watch an
yeah,
episode if it's on. But
yeah,
like, you know, I've been called everything from paid disinformation agent to the debunker to whatever, and it's not. None of this stuff was ever my intention. When I started, when I started my TikTok, I was on a paranormal podcast, and all I was trying to do was promote that podcast.
sure,
But then, people kept tagging me in videos. I kept debunking videos, and then next thing I know, the shoot downs over the over Alaska and Lake Huron or whatever. All that stuff came about, and I got over 100,000 followers in that weekend just because I kept reporting on it. Like
Oh,
I was doing
wow.
videos, like yeah, it was insane. That was Super Bowl weekend in 2023, I believe. But
Yeah.
anyways, that all happened, and it just led from there. And then I got over into X, and then I started getting information that I just didn't see. And I I've always been on the mindset, or I've always been told, like, you should always take in other views and see what gaps it feels in what you know and what you don't know. And so I started seeing reporting from other people, and like, John Greenwald, who has the blackvault.com, man, there's so many FOIA documents in there. Like you can sit there and read all that, and you can start connecting dots that way
Yeah.
from everything that's been said. People are like, well, I don't trust the government. That's fine. Okay, so you don't trust what the government says in FOIA. All right, well, people hate this guy, but Stephen Greenstreet. Greenstreet has put together so much, and he was a guy that was, pro UFO. He was insider with Elizondo and them,
Yeah.
and he started to wake up. He's like, man, this what he's saying, that doesn't make sense. Hold on, and he went down a road. And when it really came to fruition, when Greenstreet came to the same conclusion that Dr. Shankar Patrick did for Arrow about the same inner circle of people in different investigations, one being an official government investigation, the other one just a guy that was reporting on it. It kind of opened my eyes to, like, man, this seems like a bunch of people LARPing, that acting like they're insiders and acting like they got all this information, but when it comes down to it, they don't even, like, the information they put out contradicts previous information that either they put out or somebody else they're affiliated with.
Yeah.
And then you just got to be like, okay, at what point does credibility start to be a real issue here? And
Sure.
that's where I started going from there.
You felt like you needed to speak up at that point, or at least wanted to say,
Yeah, I
right?
mean,
Yeah. Yeah. And I
yeah, as
get
a
it.
veteran, especially because, like I said, yeah, like, they've been, like I've stated plenty of times here lately, there seems to be a trend where there's more emphasis on somebody's resume and background in either the military, Department of Defense, or intelligence community, and that is what justifies the claims they make in public versus what evidence or documentation they provided to justify the claims that they've made. That's what's going on. People are just saying, oh, well, this person did so and so for the government. Well, he has to be credible, and what he wouldn't be saying this if he wasn't for sure. And
Yeah.
that's just not how it works. Yeah.
I agree with
So
that.
that's one of the things I've been trying to inform people on, is that's a tactic being used by these inner circle guys.
Yeah. Well, look, man, yeah, I agree with that. And I think it's great to speak to different viewpoints. I mean, this interview will come out either before or after an interview I did with Steve Bassett, who is, super
Nice.
pro, all that, I just love having conversations. I love hearing different viewpoints. I treat it probably a lot less seriously than most people, to be honest with you.
It's a good thing. Yeah.
Yeah, but I'm interested in this topic like yourself, but at the same time, I want the truth. I always point to this
Yeah.
poster, right? It says, I want to believe, the X-Files poster, but I also say, but I don't want to be deceived, right? I want to believe, but I don't
Right.
want to be deceived. And that really bothers me. I don't like purposeful deception. One thing is to, you know, like when I worked in restaurants or had my own, places in Austin. Hey, boss, I can't come into work. I got in a car wreck. I can't make. Okay, bitch, you're fucking lying, but whatever. It's not a big deal. Okay,
Right.
that's not the end of the world. Another thing is to, you know, um, sort of play on the vulnerabilities of people, and try to profit in a way that's kind of insane. When really you don't have to lie about this stuff. I've always said you could be more speculative and theoretical about it and still do great in this field. You don't have to make concrete, you know, prophecies, and statements that never get followed up on. right? Because people forget and it gets lost in the cycle. So you can say something's going to happen and then it doesn't, and then no one says anything. You just keep going, and you know, oh, there's X amount of, you know, non-human species on the planet, not provide any evidence or proof, and just like you said, just lean on the fact of, if our best evidence is why would he lie, I would say we're in a bad place, right? That's our best piece
Yeah.
of
Oh yeah.
evidence. Well, why would he lie? Well, that can't be the best evidence you have. Why do people lie? Have you lived? Do you know human history? People lie all the time. Everybody lies. I lie, you lie. Everybody lies at some point,
Yes.
whether it's, fib, that something. We all, it's just human nature to lie. So like, why would he lie? Dude, people have a bazillion reasons of why they lie, which is why we can't rely on, well, look at his resume. I mean, or like you said, look at his resume, or why would he lie? He has no reason to lie. And again, that becomes the best evidence. And that is an issue for me. And I think
Yeah.
a lot of people, and I think there's a lot of people who are staunch believers in this topic who feel the same way, but they don't feel the courage. They don't have the courage. I wouldn't say courage. I think it's more they're scared to kind of come out and ask questions and push back, because the moment you do that in this community, you're a pariah, you're ostracized, you're
Oh yeah.
whatever. They just don't want that at all. And I think if everything's done respectfully, I don't see the problem with having conversations and asking questions, especially when a big part of it now in the UFO community is UAP legislation, and honestly, it's involving tax dollars now. Now you want hearings. Now you want Congress involved. Now you want whoa, 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 whoa. We've crossed a line into another realm, in my opinion, where I get to ask questions. You want tax dollars? I mean, that's like saying any particular topic in politics, you're not allowed to ask questions about it. I mean, that doesn't make any sense. You're asking for legislation to get passed. There should be questions asked. As an American citizen, I should be allowed to ask some of these questions about this. And that is even a bigger red flag for me. The fact that there is pushback on that it's not, yeah, hey, come down, sit down, let's talk about it. It's, you don't deserve to
Yeah.
be here, let's shut you down. That's kind of the big red flag. So I don't
Yeah,
know.
and that's happened to several people. Yeah, it's happened to several people in his community. One that comes to mind, this happened before I ever came out on X, but Lou Reviews was like one of the top shows going in the UAP UFO topic, and they asked a question to Lou Elizondo about him running sock puppet accounts and potentially harassing people
Yeah.
for those different opinions, and the answer he gave and then what followed after is a prime example of just what happens to you if you speak against the narrative and you decide to ask critical questions, which should be the very first thing anybody should do. That's why it blows my mind that Lou Elizondo sat in front of Congress and was never asked the questions about the fact that he borderline illegally snuck out videos of the Pentagon and to Christopher Mellon, which they have admitted it. They did it, and they found just a small, very gray loophole where it was borderline unauthorized disclosure. Now, people are like, "Well, that means the videos are credible." Well, that's not the case. They were come to find out. I researched this today just to make sure. But on Black Vault, it shows that those they were originally unclassified, but they're for official use only, which means that the gimbal, go fast, and FLIR videos were not for public consumption, but they were unclassified. And there's probably a reason for that. There's probably sensor data. There's probably something in the way that those videos were being shot, from what platform, what capability did we display while we were recording that probably they didn't want out there. It's not so much the contents of the object in the video, right? Which we know go fast as a balloon. FLIR was just the product of the camera, the operating system, zooming in too quick and it lost lock of the object. And the object looked like it shot off, but it really wasn't that. It zoomed in too far, lost the lock, and it gave the appearance that it shot off. That's what that was. So that leaves gimbal. And so getting back to it, that's what happened. And I don't know why nobody in Congress asked Elizondo about that, asked about the way he resigned, asked about, were you actually under oath, were you the director of ATIP? Because since, in his book he walked it back. Jay Stratton's come back, like Jay Stratton's wife said he wasn't director of ATIP. Like
Yeah.
there's a miscommunication about what's going on there. And so, why are critical questions not being asked? That's what, as a taxpayer, I want those questions asked, because it directly involves credibility issues, and that should be on display for the world to see.
Sure. Yeah. No. Good points, and those questions should be allowed to be asked. Period. I mean, that's where I stand with it. I may disagree with some of the answers or this or that, but we should be allowed to ask questions. And you know, my thing is this, man. To be honest with you, I don't really care what people's opinions of UFOs and aliens is. You know what I mean? I don't really care. It's like I'm sitting at a
Yeah,
bar, I'm drinking with somebody, and we start talking about it, and they say, "Oh, it's bullshit." Okay. Or they say, "I
yeah,
believe
that's
in it,
cool.
man." I'm okay. It's how you present that
Yeah,
message. So you brought up people like Lou Reviews, Stephen Greenstreet. I agree that they've had a particular journey in this, and I agree that in their minds they probably got fucked, and to some extent I agree with a lot of their situation. My issue with that what I've seen from them since is they're very bitter, angry, they yell a lot, they call people just horrific names. I've watched some of their stuff, maybe not Green Street as much, but Lou Reviews, and that kind of, I don't want to be a part of that either. You know what I mean? I'm not looking for people to
understanding.
be,
Yeah,
I mean, imagine, you work in the intel community. Imagine someone, comes in with the store or something, however it works, and but they're screaming, dude. The boss is going to say, "Hey, calm down." Right? It's like a chef bringing, a
right.
line cook bringing me an issue with if he's screaming. I don't want to. I don't care. I don't care how good a cook you are. I don't care if you can't communicate properly and respectfully about whatever your position is. You're gonna lose people, right? And so, my only
Yeah,
advice to people like that is just calm down a little bit. Ask your question. Be the thing, but we can't. You can't. You know, complain about something and then be this hateful. I don't know. I see it as it's just not going to get anywhere. You're not going to get people behind you. But I do sympathize with their situation and what they've been through, and evidence is evidence and data is data. And if especially Green Street, if he's put out some stuff that has been provable, I respect that for sure. I know personally, like he tried to troll me a lot on Twitter, and I just blocked him. I just moved on because again, I'm not here. I don't go troll him. I don't go in. I'm just not in for that. So I'm trying to find that middle ground in this community where it's not,
yeah,
vitriolic debunker or vitriolic believer. Like I think most people land in the middle where it's just I don't know what's going on. I want to ask questions, but also want to kind of be interested, and dig into this. Oh, that looks kind of cool.
yeah,
What's going on here? Or hear from this person, or hey, they got a story. Okay, let me hear it. I don't know, because there's only one fundamental truth that I know in this life, and that's that I don't know shit. I don't know anything. That's the truth. I don't know anything, and I question anyone that comes out to say I have all the answers. No, you don't. Whatever position that is, right? So all I'm looking for in this community is like-minded people that want to have a constructive, respectful conversation about it. But I want to hear differing opinions. I want to hear opinions like yourself, and that's why I like
yeah,
you is because you were asking these questions, but in a very respectful way and trying to just have these conversations. Because I think there's a line that the moment it gets crossed, people just stop listening. Right? If you start yelling and getting
yeah,
hateful, that nobody's listening anymore, whatever your position is. You know what I mean? So I hope that
yeah.
guys can
So,
kind of come to terms with some of that a little bit and maybe be a little more open-minded and respectful about presenting their opinions. But I get the anger. It's just,
yeah,
controlling the emotions a
especially
little bit.
for, especially, I'm not going to speak for Green Street, because I think Stephen just, he can speak for himself.
Sure.
He's a confident guy and he knows what he's saying.
Sure.
Lou is one of those guys where, and I've seen this happen because it's happened to me in Spaces on X. When you try to go in there and you try to have like a respectful debate or whatever, and then people will hound you and gang up on you and bully the piss out of you until you pretty much just quit the space. And I've seen
Sure.
it. I've seen attacks on his appearance. I've seen attacks on his fiance, girlfriend. Like,
Sure.
I've seen it all. And so, as somebody that's also been vexed from this community, because for a solid, I mean a good solid 6 months, I was ready to burn this whole community down. Like, I was wanting to, like I was, I did probably the deepest dive into David Grush anybody could fathomly think, and I
Yeah.
spent a lot of time doing it. And the purpose is because I was getting harassed, I was getting doxxed. They were trying to, they were calling previous employers, which was stupid. And you saw what happened recently with Matt Ford from the Good
Yeah.
Trouble show, where he tried to put out, I used to be an elevator technician, like that was some kind of bad thing. Well, it backfired because his followers were like, okay, well, what's that got to do with anything? Like, the dude
Absolutely.
worked a blue collar job. What does that got to do with like anything about the UFO
Yeah.
debate? But that's what's happened. He was part of that crew that was putting out my personal information like that, and he was doing it from his other account, which is that Stand Up for Better
Yeah.
or whatever. But anyways, that's so people like that get vexed, and I've seen it, and it's a wonder why I'm even still in this community. But that's where I know I don't have like a personal vendetta. I've always just wanted to find the truth
Yeah.
to what it is that I think is going on.
Sure.
And so that's why I just keep doing it. And I just stay patient. And I just try to have a good conversation the best I can.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, I obviously do not want to validate any sort of name calling or attacking people's appearance. And of course, all of that is
Right.
despicable to me. But no matter who it comes from, right? Like, that's the point. Just because it happens to you
Yeah.
doesn't mean you get to do it. But I mean, that makes no sense, right?
Right.
That
Right.
quite
Yeah. I
literally
understand.
makes no
Yeah.
sense in my mind. I was born in '79. I was raised in the '80s. My father was in the Air Force. I was born in Omaha. I was raised with the mentality of, right,
Nice.
right, treat people, just because someone's mean to you, you have to be better. You've got to stand up and be better. That's the whole point. The moment you resort to what they're doing, you just
Right.
drop yourself down to their level. So all I would say to that is,
Right.
man up a little bit, kind of beef it up, and just kind of ignore it. Get out of those places. I mean, I'm with you. I left Twitter. I've been threatened. I've been doxxed. My family's been threatened. I've been told, we know where you walk your dogs, Patrick. Open those blinds behind. Let me see where you. I get phone calls. I get FaceTimes. I get, you name it. It's all happened to me too, and I get it. But
Mm.
I'm not going to turn around and start doing that to people. That's just not in me at all.
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
try. If the moment you try to deal with crazy, you'll never win, because some people are willing to go to places you're just not. Like me, I'm just not willing to go to those places. And if they are, I just separate myself, which is why I have left UFO Twitter, just Twitter in general. Post my videos, maybe I respond a little bit to my comment, but I'm out. I'm not. I don't want to do spaces, because I'm with you. All of it sucks. I can't trust anyone to be kind of very respectful in there. A lot of stuff happens behind the scenes. So, like, I totally get it. And I want out of the
Hmm.
UFO community. I want nothing to do with it. I started the vetted community, and that's where I'm at. I want to be there because I just, in my Discord, we talked to other vetters, people with all kinds of beliefs, man. I'm talking, I don't know if there's another space in this topic that is filled with people with so many across the whole spectrum of the belief system. To this is complete bullshit, horseshit. To I was abducted and I've been on spaceships before, all hanging out together, all talking.
Hmm.
I love it.
Yeah.
I think that's
Yeah.
where it should be. I look at it as just different flavors of food. Like, imagine sitting at a table full of people and someone's like, "Oh, I love Japanese food," but I'm not really into it. You know what I mean? You can be friends. You don't have to, like, "Oh, you don't like Japanese food? Well, F you, man, and get out of here." And judging someone's character on their beliefs in UFOs is odd to me. I guess I'm just new to this community. I'm fairly new myself. I'm used to the real world, just like treating
Yeah.
people in the real world. You know what I mean? And I
Well, that's
agree.
the thing.
Getting out of that nonsense is it's hard if the sandbox you want to play in is on Twitter. I don't know
Yeah.
how to do it properly, to be honest with you. You know.
Well, that's the thing. You said it. Like when you're on UFO Twitter, it's basically, it's like, you ever see Ready Player One?
Hmm. Love that
you're
movie.
in that different community, right? You got your avatar out there, and you can say whatever you want to say, because in reality, you don't really have to answer
Yeah, that's
to
true.
the things you say,
Yeah.
most of the time,
Yeah.
right? But it is a space where, if you're not careful, you're going to get some reactions. And I hope that you don't stay gone for long, because I actually like when you're in there, like, you've listened to my space with Jason Sands.
Yeah.
And it was nice for you to come into that other space, or even in the space at the end, and say, this is like one of the most respectful spaces I've ever heard. And I could have easily went on there and did this another way and completely tore him down. I
Sure.
could have, like, and I'll be honest, like, I was a little peeved when he came out, and I was like, you're saying things that do not represent the branch that I served and you served in any shape, in a good manner. Like, and
Yeah.
I know the things that you're saying do not work that way, and they do not happen. And I could have went off, but I had the conversation beforehand with what happened with Livelsberger and this, Cybertruck deal. And I was like, you know what? Mental health is probably a priority right now. We just
Yeah.
need to do this as professional as we can. And if people want to take that information and believe it or not, that's on them. That's all we can do.
That's it, man. I mean, at
So,
the end of
but
the
it was
day,
very,
forcing people to believe it's impossible, right? It's kind of
yeah, they're going to
impossible.
believe what they want to believe.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
And
they'll
I'm
believe
okay
what
with
they want
that.
to believe. And
I want to believe what I want to believe. I don't want people forcing me or telling me what to believe. Like, it's my priority or my right, to believe whatever I
right.
want. Like, nobody's paying my bills. Nobody's taking care of my chores or my dogs or helping me with my wife. You know what I mean? I hope not. You know what I mean? Like, it's more and that's the whole point. The moment you are respectful about having your space, that's what I loved about it, is that nobody can call you out for anything, not legitimately, right? But as soon as a certain line gets crossed, then that's what they focus on. They go, "Oh, see, he's mean,"
Yeah,
and he name called him, and he yelled, and he did. Now, I will say this: you're a veteran, you're talking to other veterans. That's kind of like, I'm out, because in the sense of, that's between veterans. Like, I can't get into that.
right.
It's like a chef thing. Like, chefs arguing, like, I respect it. It's kind of like, okay, you kind of have a pass to kind of maybe say certain things or do certain things that I would never attempt to do, because I get it. As a veteran, there's this community and this brothership, fellowship, and I get that. I respect that, and I get that you may be more inclined to call certain things out as a veteran, and to be fair, I think you have a right to. Right, I think you served and earned that right, to do that. So it's kind of one of those things where, yeah, certain people get a pass that others don't. I didn't serve in the military, so who am I to come from that perspective? Like, it seems
Right.
disingenuous. So I think you and other veterans have every right to be questioning other veterans, just like I think a chef has every right to question another chef.
Yeah.
But someone comes outside of the food community and starts question, it's like, hey, you shut up. We're talking over here. This is between us over here. Now, you don't know anything about what's going on. So I respect that from you and other veterans who want to speak up. I think they absolutely have a right to be questioning other veterans the same way, right? So
Yeah, I
that,
mean,
that
that's kind of what we do, right? Like, the stolen valor thing is a real thing. And,
sure.
there's guys like me that we didn't do anything remarkable during our service. The
Most
only
people
thing I did
don't.
was I got two humanitarian awards. Yeah, I got two humanitarian awards,
Oh,
one
that's
for
awesome.
my work with the tsunami in Indonesia, and then the one for Hurricane Katrina. I
Wait.
was boots on ground for both of them. Um,
What?
yeah, so
Oh, wow. Okay. Um,
yeah,
okay, that's
yeah, I was,
interesting.
yeah, I was, yeah,
Do you know what I'm
yeah, I
going to
did.
ask
So
next?
for Hurricane Katrina, what's that?
Michael Herrera.
So I thought, yeah, so I brought that up because I did. So not only did I serve, I helped out with the tsunami, right? The tsunami happened, I think it was 2005. I was in Indonesia. I was in Jakarta, Indonesia, and that from a little small town Tennessee to Jakarta. Let me tell you,
Wow.
the shock was unreal. Yeah. Um, but I also went 2 different times to Thailand. One in the exercise that he actually talks about. And I kind of weighed in a little bit on that, and I didn't really dive much more into it because I knew that this guy was full of it.
Yeah.
But it's the things he was saying. I was like, wait a minute, that's just kind of not. That's not what I did with the exercise that I was out there for, which is still, I think, is still going to this day. It's a joint kind of exercise that we do with the countries out there, and um, I can't believe that he would have been anywhere in that position and had seen any of those things, because then there would be a lot more people with eyes on it because it was an exercise. That's just me, but everybody has their claim. So
No, I mean,
yeah,
I have
but
the only interview with Nathan, who is Michael's former team leader during that time, right? And I did an interview
right,
with him on my channel about, I mean, yeah, he's like, dude, there was no UFO. There was no, Michael did not get chosen for a secret mission on the boat. I knew where he was every second. He's like, there was only two, I think he said 3 people underneath him. Right. And he's like, I knew where they were
yep,
at all time for like a year. Right. It's like that he didn't
yep,
go do that. Like, I went with him on the day to the island for our humanitarian mission. Here's pictures. Here's us on the helicopter. Here, here's me, standing next to this coconut tree or what, like, here we are. This is what we did that day. He's like, it was a nothing burger. We went, we did a few things, we
yeah,
helped out. Everyone took a trip on the boat. There were Marines, but yeah, it's
yeah,
crazy to hear you say that. I mean, clearly there was more people there to do this, and no one else saw this thing. And why would they choose this
yeah. So
random Marine to go on this secret mission? I mean,
right, makes no sense, right? That goes
of
back to
course.
like Jason Sands claims, right? So the way the military works, yeah, you're never alone. That's the whole purpose is you always have a buddy with you. And then on top of that, if depending on your rank, you always have a supervisor with you, and your supervisor is in charge of knowing where you're at all times. And then your supervisor, they're going all the way up to senior leadership, to officers. Everybody has to be accountable for everybody is, and there's a reporting structure. So the fact that these guys are going out saying that they go on these rogue missions that have no qualifications to be on said missions is a major red flag. And people pointed at, like, there were veterans pointing that out about Herrera.
Oh
That
yeah,
when he came out, like, hey man, here, like, that's not how this works. Like,
yeah,
this would not have happened. And even if it did happen, you would have filed reports. There have been reports filed on your behalf. There would be in a paper trail. There'd been all kinds of things that would had it verified your claims, and that just was not the case. Yeah.
I
So,
mean, he never
no, I
provided
haven't seen
one
that episode.
iota of evidence. Oh, you haven't seen that episode? I'll send it to you. You should watch it with Nathan. Great guy.
Yeah.
Typical. I've worked with Marines in the restaurant industry before. Like, I was like, oh dude, you're legit. Like, he's
Yeah.
totally legit. He served a long time. Like, he you could just, I mean, just something about, there's just a certain presence that you can feel from somebody that really served and was like really in, whatever. Anyway, I found him completely credible. But at the end of the day, look, it's kind of one of those things where you decide for yourself. Do you believe Michael or you believe Nathan? Do whatever you want. But I'll tell you, there's only one person making claims, and there's only one person not providing evidence. And it's not on other people to disprove claims, right? Like that's not on us. You know what I mean? Like, the people not making claims, it's not on us to prove your story, right? Like, you're the one coming out with a story and a claim. You have to prove it. You have to bring evidence, not me. How can I disprove a negative, right? You can only just say, this doesn't seem logical. These things would have had to have happened for you to go on some secret mission. And I hate that it always falls back on, well, it was a secret mission. That's the whole point. You wouldn't have known about it. And I was chosen. It's like there's always this little out to the truth, right? Without providing any evidence. Of course, the camera that he took all the UFO pictures when he got back and stuck it in his locker, and then he went for a shower or something. He came back and it was gone. It's like, oh,
Disappeared.
of
Yeah.
course. right? Of course. And none of the
Yep.
other people want to come
How
forward
convenient.
because they're scared, right? Like there's always some out, some reason, something. And yeah, that bothers me, right? It does. It's like, I just don't believe it. Why do I have to believe it? Right. And why can't I ask questions? Right. Instead of being labeled
Right.
disinformation agent, or that's going to happen on this interview. I can already see the comments. People are going to say we're both working, for the government. But the truth that you are, but I'm not. But
Especially me.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
But like you have bad intentions. Like you want to see these people
Yeah.
fail, right? Like for no good reason. It's like, no, that's not what it is. And if it comes out that that
Yeah.
story of Michael Herrera is true and he provides evidence and I see it all, I will come out and say I'm wrong. I will come out and say, "Oh
Oh
shit,
yeah. Me.
you were right." Okay, no problem. I want to believe this stuff, dude. I want there to be UFOs flying around and we live in a Star Trek world. That sounds great. The only problem is I'm not going to cross the finish line early or celebrate before I cross
Yeah.
the finish line. Does that make sense? Like I want to believe in this stuff, but I'm not going to be celebrating I won the race before I get there. Why would I just believe to believe? That to me is a
Yeah.
false sense of belief. I actually want to believe because I care about this and like I really want to believe, but I got to see some real shit to believe. I'm okay with
Yeah.
just saying I don't know. I can live in the land of I don't know. I'll plant a flag and I don't know. I'm okay with that. But yes, I for Christ's sakes, I want to ask questions about this stuff. And if something seems ludicrous to me, it just seems ludicrous to me. I don't know
And you
why that's
should.
okay. Yeah. A lot
Yeah.
of people
You
do.
should.
A lot of people do. They're just afraid, man. The kid, there's this
Yeah.
thing, I talk about a lot. The UFO community says there's a stigma, right? Oh, if I tell, I'm at
Hmm.
Thanksgiving dinner and I bring up, people are going to laugh at me, or if I say that, people laugh about it. Okay, that's true. I agree with that. But there's also a stigma within the UFO community. The moment you start asking questions, boom, you're shut down. Boom, you're this. Boom, you're that. That's a stigma too. You can't complain about a stigma while simultaneously enveloping your own stigma in the community. Like it doesn't make sense. It keeps the community very small because if you want
Yeah.
more people involved in this, guess what's going to happen? Normal everyday people are going to come in and, yeah, I'm interested in this. I saw this. I saw this video. I saw this documentary. Cool. Hey, but what about this? This doesn't make sense. You can't just be ostracized. Everyone can't be a secret agent because they asked questions. The more people that get involved, the more questions there's going to be. So that's what
Oh
needs to
yeah.
go away in the UFO community. Let questions be asked and let the people that maybe have something a little more compelling kind of rise to the top, in my opinion.
Yeah. So that's been the biggest issue since I've been on here is you have the activists or the personalities out there. They're trying to create the echo chamber because the echo chamber means that the information gets passed around over and over, and eventually more and more people see it within the echo chamber with no critical questions.
Yeah.
And that's a problem, right? You got to be able to ask those questions instead of, it's almost like, and I hate getting into it, but it's almost like religion, right? It's
It is. Yeah.
faith based. Don't ask questions, just you have to believe, and you just have to have faith that this stuff that you're being told is true.
Correct.
Well, it's the same thing with UFOs. It's the same. There is a literal parallel of the two, and if you ask those questions, well, then you're doing it in bad faith. That you're not supposed to ask those questions, right? And that's a problem. And I personally, I don't have it. Like, I'm not trying to be an influencer. I did that once, and I did it on good intentions.
Sure.
And now I don't have a need to be an influencer. I'm just a guy that's still doing this, and I still just want the answers. And if you don't like it, that's fine. Yeah, that's why they make different flavored ice cream, right?
Yeah.
It's not for everybody,
Sure.
right? But at the end of the day, I'm going to put my stuff out there, and I'm going to go where I see the information takes me. I'm going to make my assessment, and I'm going with that. And oftentimes I'm not wrong with it, and that's the thing. I think it gets under everybody's skin is I point out, like, hey, you guys should probably be questioning this is how this goes,
Sure.
despite what this person is saying. So that's it's kind of where I'm at with it, and yeah, maybe one day, like I said, I've had my own experiences. Maybe that there's something that eventually comes out, and I've told people, I was like, if it comes out that I'm wrong, I'll eat crow. I have no problem with it. I,
100%.
I asked questions. The people that were giving you this information, they got so many holes in their story and they go back and forth. They contradict themselves. Why wouldn't I ask questions? But if it comes out, I'm like, hey, okay, so it's real. All right, so where do we go from here?
Yeah, I
Right?
agree.
That's where I would be.
Yeah. No, well said. Look, I think it would be good to get in to some of your experience. I personally have never had one. I've never seen anything. I've never seen a ghost. I've never seen a UFO. I've never seen an alien. I was heavily involved in religion for a while when I turned 18, like Southern Baptist for like 3 years, heavily involved. I never heard anything. I never saw, I prayed. So I left. I was like, nothing's working for me, man. I look over and people are like, praise Jesus. I'm just like, why don't I feel that? I don't feel shit. I don't see shit. I don't know, what's going on here? Are you lying? Cause I'm trying everything I got here and I can't lie to myself, man. Like I look in the mirror, like I just can't lie to myself about something that's not happening, no matter how
Yeah.
much I want it to be true. I've always been that way and stubborn, I guess is maybe the way to put it, but whatever. Um, you know, but I find it fascinating, people that have had something they can't explain, and I've just never had that happen. But before we get to that, I do have one, I think, obvious question that maybe I should have asked at the beginning. I think anyone watching this would want me to ask you, which is, in your time working as an intel analyst, have you heard about like UAPs behind the scene or know anything about like because that seems to be this big thing behind the scenes. Like, is that your experience as well?
Yeah, so it's basically like I obviously I don't dive into details or anything, but guys talk at work. It's just like any other job. Guys
Yeah,
have interests outside of work, and
sure.
people talk about things. So yeah, I've had conversations with people, and I can tell you right now, there are people that believe, and there are people that think just like me. Just because you do a job at a certain level doesn't mean that the things that you say is just automatically like, okay, well, that justifies it, it's credible, like it's real.
Yeah.
Like I've seen men in high ranks state that they believe in this subject wholeheartedly because of experiences they've had outside of their job.
Sure.
And then I've seen people be skeptical and just shoo it off like it's a bunch of crazy nonsense. So yeah, people, I mean, it's just like any other thing. That's what I've been trying to get people to understand. That just because people work in certain facets in the intel community or with the Department of Defense or the U.S., the government, that doesn't mean that people aren't prone to conspiracy theories and other lines of thinking. It's all the same. But I will tell you this, what you don't do is you go looking for those on classified servers. You don't go looking up that kind of stuff, because that's not what the government's paying you to do. They're
Yeah.
paying you to do a job, and
Yeah.
you do that job. You have access to information, a lot of information, but you definitely don't want to get caught doing those things. And to me, that explains some of the things that certain personalities in this subject may have not been honest about and why they've walked away from what they do or how they left the intel community, because there's more there than I think most people will realize and that being led on to believe.
Sure. I mean, how many, I guess this is going to be a pretty broad question, but like, how many people are in the intel community that work for the American government? Are we talking tens of thousands? Are we talking
Well,
like,
the intel, I mean, you can look online. There's at least 9 different intel agencies alone, and then you have
oh, wow.
you have each branch of the military have their own, they work together joint and have their own intelligence. So the
Yeah.
intelligence field as a whole is a pretty massive thing, but at the same time, and you'll hear people that ever work in the community, it's also seen as a small community because in the intel world, you can work doing one thing and somebody else does another, but your product together, the information that different people bring together doing different disciplines of the job, form the intel product. So you end up working with a lot of people. And so it's seen as a small world, a small intel world.
Okay.
But there's quite a bit that goes into it. And so I kind of I'll kind of leave it at that. I mean, it's
Yeah.
just there's a lot that goes into it.
Sure. Well, I think that there's, I think some people in the UFO community just assume there's like just 10 people that know, in the intel community. And if one person
But
comes out,
nope,
it's like, oh, I mean, he's the intel community. Look at him. He came out.
right.
He is the intel community. It's like, wait a second. That's like, there's a lot of people there. What exactly does that mean? I think you made a good point about, just because you have a certain position and then you have a belief, doesn't mean that that belief is now true because you hold this position in, the government. I mean, a great example would be John F. Kennedy being a Catholic. Oh, does that mean God's real because he believes, right? Does that make sense? Like,
Right. Yeah.
that doesn't mean
Right.
God's real. Well, he's president. It must mean he's right about God. Wait a second. It's just a belief that he holds, right? People have personal beliefs, no matter what, that may be. Yeah, I mean, I think that's a great, distinction. I don't know if I've ever thought about it that way. To be honest with
Yeah.
you, that's a great way to
I'll
put
give
that.
an I'll give an example, right? And I'm not going to mention any names or anything, but there was a while at work, I was talking to my security officer, and we were talking about the subject of UFOs, UAP, because guys at work talk. It's just what we do.
Sure.
Um, and this wasn't behind, this wasn't in closed setting or like a skiff or anything. So a very high-ranking individual came in, um, and without missing a beat, the security officer is like, "Sir," he's like, "What's your take on UFOs, UAP?" And without missing a beat, he was like, "Oh, I believe in them." He's like, "I had an experience and I saw something, at my house, years ago." And, he didn't go into detail, but he was like, "I saw enough where I think there's something out there for sure." Now, if he comes out to the public based off his rank and he says that, you better believe that people are automatically going to be like, "Yep, he's telling the truth. He's credible because of the position he holds."
Sure.
But to show that he gave no evidence of it, it's just a story, that he didn't even really go into. I can't just take his word for it because of the position and his rank and his title. I can't do that. You know
Sure.
what I mean?
Yeah.
So just to put it out there, that shows that the conversation takes place. This isn't like, it's not as big of a stigma as people say. The problem is when you go looking for it in classified settings and you start overstepping your bounds,
Sure.
then you're gonna kind of paint your, like, they can't investigate you for stuff like that. And like I said, I think that's a little bit in play on some of these people in this community.
Yeah, I mean, if you come out and now you're leveraging your position or your duties that you held as being a foundation for truth of what you're saying about UAP, right? Like, oh, I was this person and that person, so what I'm saying must be true.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, that totally makes sense. To be honest with you, man, I love this country. I love America. I've lived in other countries before, and to me, this is the most diverse place to live. I think you have the best of so many different worlds here, and pretty much anything you want to happen, if you work hard enough here, you can have it. And it's not like that in other places, man. And you know,
Mm-mm.
I want to protect this country and what we're about, and that's why I push back on some things when people come out, right, for this sort of thing, because again, you're asking for like investment in fun and like funds that could go somewhere else. Now, I'm all open to investigating things. I do believe there's things, again, I don't know anything. So I know that there's credible people, who have seen things and they can't explain it, right? And I get that. And I think clearly there's should be some sort of effort put in to find out what this is. It just is like how much effort should we be putting into that, right? It is kind of
Right.
where it comes for me. Um, so yeah, man, no, you make great points. You know, are any of the people that like have come out of UFO personalities have that worked in the intel community? Have you worked with them previously? Are you even allowed to say that? I don't even know.
No, I haven't. I haven't
Right on.
worked with them. No, I there's an agency that one of them came from that that is involved with what I do. Yes, but as far as knowing anybody, no. Um, I I'm fairly new to it, but not so new that that I'm completely ignorant to things. The job that I do, I'm very happy with. It's a great job.
Yeah,
It's something I didn't know existed, and I won't give any details about it, but it's I take national security very seriously,
sure.
and I know the I know the upcoming threats, and I understand them, and I know that when it comes down to it, it's just about I came back in because I knew I came back into this whole thing because I knew that at some point something's going to kick off, and I just want to make sure that I'm contributing like I'm supposed to
Yeah.
be doing.
I love that, man. No,
Yeah,
that's what makes this country so great, man. There are people willing to step up and do things I personally wouldn't do. That's the
yeah,
truth. That's really why I respect veterans so much, is because I'm not willing to do it. And I have so much respect for people that are. First of all, nobody in the military wants my dumb ass in there. I promise you that much. I would goof off too much. I just am not made for that. To be honest with you, I feel like I served this community in another way. All the time I lived here, like when I had my food truck and my food businesses, I constantly was having events for the local fire department, police department, anything I could do to give back to the community that keeps us safe, keeps us allowing to bitch and moan and complain. And you know what I mean? Like that freedom to even just, say those things, you know what I mean? And
yeah,
I think it's important to um, protect that and support that. And I think I totally get why people like yourself and others who have served or are currently serving, when they hear some of these things and see again their positions, these UFO celebrities, using their positions to leverage. It's like, well, wait a second, now you're making me look bad. Now you're
yeah,
making what we did kind of not mean anything, right? Because again, I don't think we need to go as far as, well, there's non-human species on the planet. But wait a second, why can't we just say there's things flying around, we don't know what they are, and we want to look into it? Why can't it just stop there? Why can't it just be that? Why do we have to? Well, there's underground alien bases off the coast of Baja California. Whoa, 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 whoa! What are we
yeah,
talking about here? This is kind of insane. And I don't see the problem of, if a video is a balloon, why can't we just say that and move on? And let's focus on other videos that we don't know what they are. Why keep pretending certain videos or certain things, are anomalous when they're not? That
yeah,
also is kind of disconcerting to me. I don't know why we add to the haystack more when we're trying to find this needle. You know what I mean? Like, no, let's get rid of the haystack. That's the whole point. It will make it easier to find that needle, in my opinion, because I don't know if there's, the idea that the US government has, you know, a recovered UFO or many, or recovered alien bodies or many, that is a very enticing, compelling thing to me, okay, to think about, but not at the cost of just throwing away my logic and critical thinking, if that makes sense. Like, just to, you know what I mean? And put
right,
our country at national security risk, real shit that's happening, right, in the world, real threats against, our people in America. That is not worth it to me, to give that up just so we can, yeah, UFO, we got a UFO, at what cost, going down that lane, is it, you know what I mean? And I can't imagine being in your position, to be frank with you. Like, it's got to be frustrating to some extent.
Well, it's funny because like I actually talked at work here recently, and guys are starting to kind of clue into what I do just on X, and
Sure.
a lot of guys just laugh it off, and they're just But I've also heard conversations about what people think, especially because there was a congressional hearing or two that's popped up, which was surprising to me at first, but then I thought about it and I was like, man, just like everybody else, we all have opinions. We all have interests.
Sure.
Things pop up and we have opinions about those things. And we talk about it with other like minded individuals or even, not so much like minded, but just adult conversations. There's nothing
Yeah.
wrong with that. Um, but yeah, so but the problem has always been for me is the people that act like they're in the know and they claim to have information, yet
Correct.
they don't ever bring it forward. And it's been, with David Grush alone, it's been a year and a half, I guess. And still nothing. I mean, the guy's basically, after the first historical report came out by Arrow, he went MIA. I mean,
Yeah,
he might be working on something behind the scenes, but I
sure.
think that historical report just basically, because there was an op-ed he was supposed to have come out and all kinds of stuff, and it literally just shut the door on him, to be honest. Um, and
I like
there's
that
just
guy, dude. That's the problem with this. Some of this, like, I start to like the person. Does that make sense? Like, it's like, God, he seems
yeah.
like a nice guy, family guy, served our country, has done things like, fucking hell, man. I don't want to. I
Well,
respect that service. It makes it really hard for
yeah.
me.
So I was really hard on him when he came out because I was like, man, just the stuff is not adding up. But I will
Sure,
say there's an opinion about him that has changed for me, and that's, I truly believe, after the video, like the clip I put out of Eric Davis stating that him and Hal Puthoff turned Grush onto the information that he got that led to the 40 whistleblowers. Well, one,
yeah, I saw that.
that shows that despite what has been said, even by Grush himself, that it wasn't the product of the same old UFO people inner circle, it actually was. And now you kind of see that Grush has been probably duped into thinking this thing exists and it's in these places. You need to go find that. And it's potential that he threw away his career trying to find the stuff that those people like Eric Davis and Hal Puthoff have been saying. And if that's the case, that's a shame.
Yeah,
There's other things that factor into it, but in the end, I do think that he was duped a little bit into believing, hey, this thing's real. You need to go looking for it. And I think that played into why he had some trouble.
sure.
And then there's other things too, that it's speculation on my part, but the timeline and the information connects to what I think is, with Jeremy Corbell and these videos he's put out, most certainly are UAPTF leaks. And I've had Travis Taylor comment and say, yeah, whoever's leaking that information should go to jail. That to me signifies that Travis Taylor knows that's classified material and should not be out there and leaked
Yeah.
to Corbell. And then Logan, the guy that was on the program, James Fox's program, he's come out recently.
Logan.
I asked him in a space. Yeah,
Oh,
Phenom. So have
Logan
you seen the
Lermer?
program with
Is that his name? Logan Lermer?
something like that? Yeah,
Yeah, the black
he's at
guy
Air
from
Force.
yeah, I know who you're talking about. Yeah.
Yes,
See, I
the
like that guy
program.
too. He seems
Yeah.
like a great guy to have
So
a beer with, dude. Jesus.
he does. These seem like great people, and they probably are good people with no
Absolutely.
nefarious intent.
Sure.
But then even Logan stated, he goes, yeah, he goes, I told Corbell, I asked Corbell, hey, where are you getting this from? Because you probably shouldn't. And he even stated that Corbell just kind of smirked at him. And it's probably a good thing that he doesn't tell Logan, because then, and Logan agreed to this, Logan he would be required to report that unauthorized disclosure that's happening, and that
Sure.
would put everything in motion. So there is something from somewhere in UAPTF that seems like that is leaking out to Corbell, and that's a national security issue. It's not so much they're hiding technology. That's not the issue. The issue is there are things that are probably classified, the sensor data and everything that goes along with it, that should not be for public consumption. And
Sure.
that's why, you're seeing maybe Grush fell off the radar for reasons. Who knows? It's speculation, honestly, but the information kind of presents itself sometimes, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, I would say this whole topic is all speculation in my, but like it's all, it's like I think it's all
Yeah,
opinions and
yeah,
speculation and theory in my opinion. So like anything goes as far as
it really is.
and yeah, man, I can't that is sort of the issue is like I think some of these people are probably great people and you know what's happening behind the scenes, like who knows. I mean, I personally have witnessed and been a part of and seen the complete drama behind the scenes and the complete just mayhem of people not getting along and fighting and this and that. And you know there's clearly like multiple camps and movements or whatever you want to call it, like that they're not getting along and they're, talking about each other and, they don't even get along, right? There's no
Right.
cohesiveness in any of this. And they all say different
Right.
truths. All of it can't be true.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's
And
like,
yeah,
what's going on?
it's been sloppy.
It's
With
sloppy.
them,
Yeah.
contradicting each other. That's why I've been saying lately. I don't even care about the OSAP ATIP history anymore. But
Yeah.
if Elizondo was the director,
Sure.
because even if it was all true, it is the sloppiest, most unorganized, chaotic organization I've seen run yet, and it's not a good thing. It's not a good look. The fact that the guy who created ATIP, supposedly Jay Stratton, and the guy who was the director of ATIP, supposedly was Lou Elizondo, they contradict each other often. That right there tells you,
A
like,
lot.
yeah, what were you guys even doing? Like,
I agree.
how did this show run when there was actually boots on the ground? You guys were doing things supposedly. Like, it doesn't sound like it went well. So,
I mean, I think that about the UAPTF as far as like,
mhm.
there's all these people that come out and go, I was a part of the UAPTF. What the fuck? How many people were in this thing? And like, what were their duties? Like that becomes the issue. Like, it's like chefs oftentimes, well, maybe not executive chefs, but sous chefs will typically, outside of their normal duties day to day, right? They're working on some dishes. Right? They're just kind of working
Mhm.
on a few things, ideas, maybe to present, to be put on the menu, right? So just look at, but 5% of their week, 10, just when they have time, right? When shit's done, okay, or shift's over, we cleaned up. Okay, you know what? I'm gonna stay an extra 30 minutes and work on this little thing that I've been thinking about. This little pineapple foam. Okay, let's see what this is like. Whatever. It
Yeah.
seems to me there's a lot of that. Like there's a lot of, I just kind of helped out here and there when I could, because it's like I'm trying to nail down whose job, what, like that's your job, like that was your thing all the time. And I'm not saying that deters from the truth or what's happening, but I think people exaggerate their workload on this program and the actual access that they had. And sometimes I think the knowledge that they say they have may just be, like you're saying, more water cooler talk. And now they've turned that into official, you know, acknowledgement from the government or secrets being
Right.
hidden. And um, yeah, that's concerning, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Again,
Yeah.
sloppy.
UAPT. Yeah, UAPTF is a interesting breed. Apparently, there was the core group that worked together, and then there were the people that were part of a forum. And the forum, from
Yeah.
what Travis Taylor said in the comments on my video, he stated that the forum was basically something where people could upload and outsource videos of UAP or whatever, and they could talk about it. And if there's anything of real interest, then the UAPTF, the actual core group, can take that and look into it further. Is what it sounds like it was. And and even Grush stated that the UAPTF was not his actual job; it was an additional duty that he volunteered for. Right?
Okay.
It's like you're doing a side gig to help boost your resume for what you're doing in
Okay.
your actual work.
Like an
Right? So,
internship
like,
in college to help
right.
okay, I get it.
Right. So he's working for either NRO or NGA, whichever one at the time. He's like, hey, I'll take on some additional duties. Yeah, I'll do this. It's a
Yeah,
resume builder. He even
sure.
stated that. He said resume builder. And so, it was just something that he did part time on his own time, basically. The problem I think he ran into was he maybe speculation, but he might have just been using those servers looking into things where he said that he should have had access to everything, which that's not how it works. Just FYI, you don't just have blanket access to whatever you want, especially when it comes to special access programs,
God, I hope
especially
not.
unacknowledged
Yeah.
special No,
Yeah,
because that defeats the purpose. Yeah, it
absolutely. I
defeats the
agree.
purpose of the
A
compartmentalization.
master key,
So
right? Like
I think
how could that be possible?
yeah, nobody has a master. Yeah, just most, there might be one or two, and
Sure.
that's very, very high up. but there's really nobody has that access, and I think he might have crossed some bounds looking into places he shouldn't have, and that's where he started seeing those reprisals. That's what makes the most sense to me, because I'll end with this, and I've always stated this: how does a lifelong intelligence fella like Grush, who started as a 14N, which is an intelligence officer in the United States Air Force, active duty, and he developed a whole career trying to climb to the top to get to the pinnacle of, a GS-15 type director position. How does he get that position and then just walk away from it? And just not even that, but walk away from the intelligence community altogether, especially if you say you still have your clearance. Why? That doesn't make sense to anybody ever asked that question to. Anybody. There's not one person that was like, "Oh, I can see that." Not one. The GS-15 level is, you're at a director position. That's the pinnacle of an intelligence position. You
Oh,
are
okay.
now the lead guy. Yeah, you're the lead guy in whatever office that you're currently running.
Yeah.
You want that. You want that. You don't walk away from that to be a real estate agent.
I
That's just
mean,
not.
so it's like basically like, if I could compare it, it's like whatever, like you work your way up to get in the NFL and you become the starting QB to, returning Super Bowl champ, and then you just walk away to go do whatever, right? Like it doesn't make sense. Like the goal
Yeah.
would be to
Yeah.
get to
It's
that
like,
point and then you just step away from it, right? Like you're right.
and you go be a high school coach.
Yeah, exactly.
That's
Yeah,
the equivalent.
yeah,
That's the
yeah.
equivalent. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's not,
Wow.
and that's staying in the same field still. Like real estate, lifelong intel guy to real estate. Like I could see that as a side gig, but
Make some extra money.
yeah,
Sure.
but a GS-15 position, you're making, if you're not able to survive off of that, you have some issues that are far beyond anything work related. You need to just probably budget better,
Sure.
because
Yeah.
I comfortably live off of what I make, and
Yeah.
that's not even near a GS-15. So
Yeah.
just kind of putting that out there. That's why there's people like me that, like, I can speak to those things and kind of how that works, and people I've had conversations with saying, "Would you ever walk away from this position? How much sense does this make to you?" And everybody's like, "That makes zero sense."
So why do you think he did
So,
it?
take that for what it's worth.
Why do you think he walked
I
away?
I think he was duped into believing that the information that he gathered from those individuals. I think, well, and I also think he's also had a long interest in UFOs, despite what he stated on Joe Rogan. That
Sure.
came into play. I brought that out to the public. There was a FOIA reply that John Greenwald got from the 2021 DODIG meeting that Grush had with them, and there was a transcript of said meeting. And in that, they asked him the question, "How long have you been studying UFOs?" And he stated 15 years. 15 years. Now, when he went on Joe Rogan and he did his podcast tour, he said UFOs were, quote, "never really on my radar until either he was approached by for this additional duty." And then he's also stated that he knew about Elizondo from the 2017 New York Times article. 15 years from 2021 is going to be 2006. That's when he was in college,
Yeah.
per his resume that he submitted to Congress. So he, you know, people are like, "Well, that's not that big of a deal." Well, when you're building credibility and you're making statements to the public, but then you're making contradicting statements behind closed doors when it actually
Sure.
matters, that is a big deal, right? You're showing that you're deceiving the public by trying to build credibility, saying you weren't interested in UFOs. Lou Elizondo did the same thing. He said he's not a UFO guy. Yet what does he do? He's all about UFOs.
Sure.
So both of them have said the same thing, that they're not UFO guys. Both of them filed ICIG complaints. Both of them walked away from intelligence positions. There's a pattern,
Yeah.
and
Well, that's
people don't
interesting.
realize that between those two. Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's you hear that a lot in this community. Like, I was never into UFOs, and Michael Rary said the same thing. Like, I wasn't into this until one day. I mean, Ross
Yeah.
Coltell tells a story of David Grush not being into UFOs till he was at a bar, And one day he was talking about with some guy, and he was, oh, UFOs is bullshit. And the guy said, maybe not. And then David Grush was like, wait, what? Maybe it is true. It's like, wait a second, where did that story come from? Right. It's
Yeah.
always like seeing, I think it's used to like, I wasn't into this before. It's bullshit, but now I'm into it. You should believe me, right? If I got convinced there's something here, I think that's the underlying sort
Yeah.
of, point, instead of just being truthful about, yeah, man, I've been into UFOs my whole life. And so that's why I wanted to look into it. I actually think that would come across more credible if you're just more honest about that. But I think they think that'll be used against him. Oh, see, he's just a UFO nut his whole life. But really, it's more like, wait a second, you thought it was all bullshit, and then one guy at a bar says maybe it's not, and now you change your mind. That's all it took, was one guy at a bar having a few beers and him just saying, well, maybe it's not bullshit, and now your mind's changed. I mean, first of all, that's just super suspicious. It doesn't make any sense. Granted, that is coming from Ross Coulthart and not David Grush himself, but I agree. Sort of trying to play down your interest in the topic, right? And that there was some switch
For
that happened.
credibility.
Yeah, for credibility. Then there was some
Yeah.
switch that happened, and that therefore makes it more credible because you switched, right? You weren't into it. You thought it was bullshit.
Right.
It was enough to take you to the other side. Therefore, maybe there is something here with this guy, right? Which also begs the question,
Right.
then how can you be so mean to people who think it's bullshit now if you were also in that position at one point? Does that make sense?
Right.
Like, why are you
Right.
so mean
It's
to
the
people if you're claiming that, then you're where I'm at. So why am I such a bad
yeah.
guy? Right? Like, that also doesn't
Right.
make sense. I
Well,
don't think they think that through.
and it's like you brought up, it seems like it's the whistleblower playbook. Like they've all kind of stated the same thing. Even Christopher Mellon himself was on Joe Rogan and stated that he
Yeah.
has seen nothing in his time at his position that would indicate that UFOs were a real thing and it wasn't just something else. And then all of a sudden, within like 9 months' time, he went from stating that on Joe Rogan to now he's in the Pentagon parking lot taking leaked
Yeah.
videos from Lou Elizondo to the Stars Academy to take to the New York Times and blast it everywhere. And now you've got them. I'm like, what did you see? Like Mellon, what did you see that you just shifted your whole paradigm overnight? Like,
Yeah.
how did that happen? And you're seeing that same playbook in every single person that comes out,
No, you're
and
right, man.
that's a little coerced to me.
I
You know
you
what I
know,
mean? Like
yeah,
it seems,
I agree. I agree. It's definitely suspicious, and I don't want to be one of these people. It's like, well, I can't. I just don't trust, you know, government officials who come out,
yeah,
former government officials who like, well, I can't tell you that, and I can't talk about this, but I have
yeah,
knowledge. But it would
yeah,
change if you knew what I knew. Again, it just makes it all. They kind of just play on your vulnerabilities and on. Well, you wouldn't question a veteran, would you? You wouldn't question a disabled veteran, and you wouldn't question XYZ. It's like they kind of play off of that. A woman coming out and saying, hey, I was sexually assaulted. How dare you question me? This isn't. It becomes very kind of suspicious in a lot of ways. And I get it, man. It's just so difficult to try to find the truth in all this fog, to be honest with you. And to be honest with you, that's why I just fall on forget people, forget their testimonies, forget what they say. You know, just show me evidence and proof that I can
yeah,
see with my, and then there's no, if you just bring out the bodies you say there are, then we don't need any of these stories. Then it doesn't matter what Lou Elizondo
yeah.
said, David Grush said, this guy, and I don't hate any of those guys. And you know, I'm personally nothing against them in that sense. It's just I want to be allowed to ask questions. That's all it is. But just bring out the body, bring out the UFO,
Yeah.
and then there's just there isn't there we don't need to rely on stories and, well, why would he lie, right? And so said it,
Well, yeah.
right, the circular thing, right? And I get it. It's good God, it's just frustrating.
Well, it's very telling. It's very telling too that when I came onto the scene, like Elizondo was one of the first people to block me because I did have
Yeah,
critical
I'm blocked
questions.
too.
Like when I first saw yeah, Green Street had a article come out when I was kind of new to the scene on X, and I read that article, and of course a lot of his stuff is backed up by things that Elidondo's either said or the DoD has come out and officially said about his position within the Pentagon and ATIP and all that. And I started like, yo, like, you need to talk about this. These are important questions that need to be answered. And then next thing you know, like, I'm blocked, and I'm blocked by everybody. Like, surprisingly, Corbell hasn't blocked me, but Nap has. Ross Coulthard has. Coulthard, I'm not a fan of. I know personally that he's messaged people trying to scare them into deleting their post. I've seen the messages, and that
Oh,
particular
really?
person isn't on the platform anymore. Yeah, and
Disgusting.
so I know I see how he operates, and I'm not a fan of it. So, but here's my overall deal. If these things are so active and so plentiful, like they say UFOs and UAP are, why why in the world are we just not seeing them all the time? Like, I can't imagine that if they're all over our planet and flying around above us, why is nobody just how come none of them just stopped in like, hey, we come in peace, like, hey, we're aliens, blah blah blah. Like, it makes no sense that we have these things always
We're
flying. What are we, a
aliens.
gas station? Like,
Yeah.
why did they just stop here and not talk to us? You know what I mean? People are like, oh, because we kill each other and blah blah blah. I'm like, every species everywhere kills each other. We're not the only ones. Like, it is what it is, right? Every
Yeah.
species on this planet, they pretty much all kill each other in some form or fashion. So it makes no sense the way that people do these hurdles and try to escape the reality of, well, if it was just that plentiful, I could look out my door right now and they'd be flying. I'd be like, oh, it's UFO. Oh, there's another one. Hey,
Yeah.
that's from the galactic whatever. You know what I mean?
Just
That's
like
not
you
the
see
case.
planes
And on
and
top of it,
helicopters in town, right? Just like,
all the time,
yeah. Yeah.
all the time. And what's crazy is the fact that if you go out on a clear night when there's not a lot of light pollution, you can go out and see a satellite like no problem.
Yeah.
Like,
Oh, yeah.
there was one time I spent some time in Texas recently, and I can tell you that there was one night I saw like 13 satellites in a night, and it was beautiful. It's cool as hell.
Yeah.
Um, and one thing I never saw was anything to suggest that there were aliens up there. And then to get into the excuse people talk about, well, we need the alien technology. We need that exposed because it could do things for our planet. Here's the thing. If we had said technology and we were using that in our anything with to do with military, do you think there'd be a 3-year war going on between Russia and Ukraine? Do you think we would have been in the Middle East for 20 years? Would we have not just used this crazy technology to show our overall dominance, and it would just be known? It
Yeah.
makes no sense to me. We don't have the technology that people claim. Yes, we've made innovations and leaps over the years, but that's called human innovation, right?
Correct.
And the fact that people claim there's this crazy technology, but there's no evidence out there to suggest that exists, and we're weaponizing it or using it anyway, has always blown my mind. And that's the number one factor for me. If it was there, we would just know by now. We would just see it.
Yeah.
As many secrets that get leaked out constantly from military, DoD, whatever. Like, you can't convince me that 80 plus years of this one secret we've held so tight knit that nobody knows where this stuff is and has brought it forward. It just is impossible to me.
Yeah. Well, that's a great point, man. I think America has never been hesitant to display its power. So why would we not display that and
Right.
try to, especially if we're trying to get control of oil or this or spread democracy or whatever? Like, why wouldn't we? We use everything else at our disposal. Why wouldn't we use that? Yeah, I mean,
Right.
I agree. I agree. And some of the pushback, I guess, is, well, we just haven't figured it out yet. But then you said, well, wait a second, because XYZ says we have, and we have this flying around. Again, that's my issue, is just all these weird stories that don't line up. Nothing adds up. All the stories are so different. You got Stephen Greer saying there's
Hmm.
60 to 70 alien species on Earth. They're all friendly, first of all, I mean, I have so many questions, right? When you hear that, how do you know they're all friendly? That makes 0 sense. How do you, what, 60 to 70? Where, I mean, what are we talking about here? And then other people you talk to, well, no, that's not true. That's BS. It's actually just XYZ. And, and this person says this, and other people say, no, it's just one species, and they're mean. They abduct people and they, this, that. I mean, it's just, again, that's
Right.
for me, it's just, oh my God. So all this can't be, but you know what keeps me in it, man? What keeps me in it is just your average everyday person who says, I don't know, man, I saw something and I don't know what it was.
Yeah.
There was an experience or something. They're not a former government official. They're not anything. They're just regular
Yeah.
Joe telling a story. And that's kind of what keeps me in it. If I'm being honest, I hear all of these
Yep.
people and I just think, I don't know, maybe there is something, wow, all these people just, they have, you know, I guess they could have a reason to concoct a story, but I guess I don't see any other filter that it has to go through to get the information. Meaning, they don't have to go through Dopser, they don't have to worry about this, that, the other. They're just, this is what I saw. I don't know. I appreciate people who tell me their experience and go, I just don't know what it was. And
Yeah.
instead of, no, Patrick, I had an experience and that alien told me XYZ, and now I'm here to promote that message. And that is what happened. And there was zero doubt. You're not going to convince me otherwise. And it's like, wait a second, you're just closing the book on what if you were presented with new information? Would you not change your mind? Like, that worries me. That's a red flag for me
Right.
when they're not willing to accept new information that would change their mind one way or the other. Right. I also think the other way, like we talked about earlier, if you kind of said the same thing I believe, which is if something new came out, I'm in. I if I see the evidence and the proof, why wouldn't I believe it?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Zero
Yep.
problems with that. I just haven't seen that yet. You know. But look, let's
Yep.
kind of jump into a little bit of your experience, man, because I wanted to get to that earlier, and I apologize. Yeah, let's just start
Oh,
there.
you're
Like,
good.
what are we talking about when you say you've had experiences? What does that mean exactly?
So it's kind of a long road. But so as far as UFOs go, I've had two sad experiences. One of which was the first one, I think I figured out what it was. At least now that I've gotten older, I kind of know. But when I was a teenager, I was I think it was a freshman in high school. There were me and a couple kids in the neighborhood, which included two cheerleaders in the high school. We were all hanging out. There was probably six of us, and it was starting to get sunset, duskish, and it's in the country. And so to try to cut this story short, we were all hanging out, and this girl's house. When you look forward, there's the road that goes down, and then there's a tree line. We're in the country, and it was weird how it all came about, but we had all just happened to look up right above the tree line, and I can still see it to this day. It's crazy, but there was this blue. I don't know what to say. Like, I don't want to. It wasn't an orb. I'm not going to call it an orb, but it was a ball of light. It was a light.
Wow.
It was blue. Distinctly, it was blue, and it went across like what looked like above the treetops, but there was no wind associated with it, and it didn't make a sound. And it's like we all saw it. I don't know how we all looked up and saw it, but we did. It was really odd. It was like we stopped what we were doing and talking about and just happened to look up, and we seen this thing. It got to a point where everybody was like freaked out what they saw. Uh, a couple people called their parents to come pick them up.
Oh,
Uh, me
jeez.
personally,
Wow.
me personally, I was one of them, and I lived up the road because I didn't know what I just saw, and I don't know what it meant. Um, I explained it to my mom. She came and got me, and I went home and I had this like light up, glowing alien mask, and from Halloween, and I literally took scissors to it, cut it, and threw it in the trash. Where I was so freaked out, like it, and to
Wow.
this day, it's really odd. There's only one of those people that I'm still in contact with, and not so much, but I've seen her around, like downtown, like at a bar or something,
Yeah.
and I ran into her once, and we were just catching up over a beer, and I was like, "Hey," I was like, "You remember that thing we experienced back in the day?" And I had to break it down to her. She goes, "Oh my God, I do remember." She's like, "I tried so hard to forget about that, and to be honest with you, I just don't even really want to talk about it." And I was like, "Okay."
Wow.
And I was like, "Well, I think we might have saw like something like a meteor or something burn the atmosphere that blue light. I think that's what it was. That's why there was no sound." I was like, "I think that's kind of what it was." She was like, "Yeah, but I don't know." She goes, "There was something eerie about that day," and she never wanted to talk about it again. And so I think that's probably what it was. We caught it at the right time, and it was a big ball of light, and I just kind of shoved it off as that. And then other one was
Wow.
recently when I was in Texas. The one in Texas, still to this day, I'm not really sure about. I can't for the life of me explain it because I thought it was nothing. And
Wow.
then my friend from the gym, who we left at the same time, that person went the separate way as me, called me and said, "Hey, I just saw something," and explained exactly what I thought I saw, but I wrote it off as something else.
Yeah.
And to this day, like it blew my mind. And it was out there in Texas. And it was basically, try to get into this. Uh, there was a big storm brewing, and it was off in the distance. And it was like the cloud was so tall. In Texas, it's flat land everywhere.
Yeah.
And so you saw this beautiful, like, cloud, this display of lightning going on. It was breathtaking. And the storm was going on, and I remember what I could have swore was an airplane coming towards us, and didn't think anything about it. And the storm's off that way, and the airplane's coming from this way. So I get in the car, and I'm driving, and at that I had a crack in the windshield, a small one from where it had held from a storm earlier. And I had been stopped at a red light, and I was about to take a left, and I remember briefly looking over at the storm, and I thought I saw the object that I thought was a plane. It looked like a freaking ball of light had shot right into the cloud as fast as you could see it. It went from like there straight into the cloud. People are
Wow.
gonna think I'm nuts when I'm talking about this. I originally thought I was like, no, wait, that was probably like the light glaring on the crack in the windshield, and I thought that's what I saw. And
Yeah.
I was like, that had to be it, right? Makes no other sense. Even though that light looks like it was kind of stationary,
Sure.
that the light source came from.
Yeah.
So I'm driving. My friend from the gym calls me, and that person was like, "Hey, um, I feel weird telling you this, but you know that storm we were looking at before we got in our cars?" And I was like, "Yeah." "Well, I saw this happen," and I about dropped my phone
Oh
because they
shit.
explained the same thing that I saw, and they're
Yeah.
going in the opposite direction I was going home, the
Yeah.
complete opposite, on the other side of the town, and said they saw the same thing. It looked like a light had shot into the cloud, into the storm, a ball of light go right into the storm. Craziest thing. Like, to this day,
Wow.
like, I got back to the apartment. I looked. I watched this light stay stationary in the sky for like 10 minutes. Even got a recording of it, but it just doesn't really show much. I can't I never saw it happen again. But the fact that somebody else, who has no interest in this subject, by the way, said they saw this thing, the same thing I thought I saw and wrote it off, still to this, like, I can't, we actually still talk about it.
Wow.
And this person knows I'm kind of skeptic. And then they keep on bringing up, well, what about what we saw? And I'm like, you would ask that because I can't, I can't explain it. And they know I can't explain it. But yeah, so besides that, I was in the paranormal community as far as I used to, what they call ghost hunting.
Yeah.
I did that for years, a couple years. This was back like 10, 12 years ago, maybe more. I had experiences with that. I was known as the skeptic. People knew me around the area. I even got invited to shoot a pilot for a show that, thank God, never took off, because I had never I had never been a part of such a circus of goofballs in my life, and I had no idea what I was getting into. I knew none of these people.
Sure.
The talent agency reached out to me and said, "Hey, we had heard your name get tossed around. We think you'd be good for this show." And so I did it, signed an NDA, and I shot that pilot. You can still find it on YouTube. And I'm to this day, I'm like, oh my God, if that had taken off, I would not have lasted long because I would have eventually had integrity enough to be like, everybody here is full of crap.
Yeah.
I got to call it out. So I did stuff like that, and then I took a hiatus from it. And then the people that I used to be on a team with, called Military Veterans Paranormal, um, the director had called me and said, "Hey, we're running this podcast. We've been doing it for a while. You want to come on as a guest? We'll talk about some of the stuff that we experienced." And I was like, "Yeah, I'll do it." And then it turns out I ended up being on that podcast for a whole season and a half. And so I did that for a while, and that's what got me onto TikTok. And that's how I got over 200,000 followers doing the TikTok thing in like 6 months. I was only on there for about 6 months. And then I came over to X. And that was kind of my journey. But on the paranormal side, I did, even though I explained away probably pretty much everything except for there's 2 instances, maybe 3, that to this day, man, I can't explain it. I just don't know how. When objects get thrown and you watch it multiple times and everybody in the room is right behind you and nobody's doing it, you
How do you
sit back
explain
and you're
that?
like,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm just like, I'm dumbfounded. Like, I just don't even know what's at play here. So people are going to find that hard to believe with me, but yeah, I got hit with a rock during an investigation. That was wild. And throughout the investigation, it got to a point where I was starting to get critical of my own teammates. I thought somebody was hoaxing it because we had a local radio crew there because we were doing a Wounded Warrior Project
Okay. Yeah.
fundraiser for
Yep.
our investigation. So we had a local radio crew there, and they took part in some of our investigation. And I thought at some point one of my teammates was like trying to,
Mess with you.
make it seem like, yeah, like there was more than what was happening.
Sure.
But it came to a head when I was like, I got so critical. I said, look, everybody behind me. I was like, I'm going to ask this question, and we're going to see if we can get a response this time. And it had been happening. And like I said, I thought somebody was messing with me. And I asked, I was like, hey, if there's something here, can you throw a rock from that hallway down here towards me? And nothing happened. And I thought, okay, now I figured it out. Somebody behind me was doing this, and I'm going to eventually call them out when that radio crew's not there. And I'm going to have an issue with this team.
Sure.
And then I asked it again last time, and I kid you not, a damn pebble comes right down the hallway and hits me basically right in the front of my boot. And to this day, I can't even explain like how it could happen. There's just no way. There's no way it could happen. Down a long hallway.
Wow.
You hear it bounce, bink, 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 and it just hits me in the foot. And everybody in that whole place is behind me. All 6 other people are right there behind me, accounted for. And there's no way that should have happened. So yeah, that's probably the one of 2 experiences I had where I was just floored, couldn't figure it out.
That's crazy, man.
So
God damn, why can't I have anything
yeah,
happen, man? I swear to God. You come to Texas, you not even live here and you get an experience. I live here. Okay. I lived here a long time. I grew up here. I haven't seen shit. That pisses me off. It's like,
yeah,
God damn it. I want to see something so
yeah.
bad. Just something
And
I can't
I don't think
explain.
I was. I mean, I'm not going to tell where I was, but
Sure.
because just how the community is on here. But I think I was fairly close to you within a couple hours.
Yeah.
That to me is in Texas is not far.
No, that's
So
close.
yeah,
I'll go
it
that far
was.
for good pizza, so.
There you go. Yeah, yeah. But yeah, that's kind of the gist of like my whole realm of like how I got involved with all this. And it's just led me to this point here. I don't really do anything on the paranormal side, which
Sure.
I always tell people that aliens, UFOs are still paranormal, but on the ghost side, if you want to call it, I don't really do anything with that anymore.
Yeah.
But the UFO thing seems to have more um, weight to it, right? So that's where my attention lies, and I need to figure out like what did I see in the skies that night. But what I don't understand, and what I don't like people that claim to be more than what they are and
Sure.
exaggerate, their service and what they did for the government. And a lot of these guys just seem like LARPing to me. Like, give me somebody that knows what, that's not afraid to say, you know what, we don't know what's going on. We can't label it, but we're going to look into it further, right?
Yeah.
Like Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick for Arrow, he said there's things that, we don't know. But I'm cool with that answer. Don't be like a guy that portrays yourself to do something that you didn't do and that you have all this information, but you haven't come forward with it. Don't be
Sure.
that guy, especially when you're in front of Congress under oath, like you on the biggest stage and you drop the ball. Like Anna Paulina said, like, I wanted answers. I'd wanted more answers, not promoting your book,
Yeah.
right? You're wasting our time. She stated that after that hearing.
Oh yeah, I
I think
covered
the
it.
majority of people should feel the same way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think you're a great example of, you know, you can have an experience and just say you don't know. And we can move the ball forward on, there are unexplainable experiences that people have had, and we can move the ball forward with that. We don't have to exaggerate, we don't have to lie, we don't have to, make things up, we don't have to LARP, we don't have to do any of these things. We can literally, there are literally things happening that people can't explain, and that's that's real, and that's enough to move forward with that. That's what
Yeah.
right. Anyone trying to latch on, it's like those sharks that swim in the ocean, they got the little fish attached to them, you know what I mean? Like, there's just a lot
Yeah.
of those little fish, whatever they're
Yeah.
called.
The
There's a
little
lot of
feeder
that.
fish or whatever they
Yeah,
are.
yeah, they literally are right on them, you know what I mean, just like attached. And that's how I see this field. It's like, again, I talk to so many people like yourself who have questions and have had experiences. They just have had things. They just don't know what it
Yeah.
is. They're not willing to go cross a finish line and say, it's aliens are here and we're
Yeah.
being invaded and we got to watch out and I'm building a bunker and whatever, right? And start releasing videos of stars zoomed in, and I can talk to God and I can heal people and whatever. It's like, it just, I mean, George Knapp kind of actually said something that I agree with. I like that guy. He just seems like an old sort of timey detective. I know he blocked you, and I get it. But
Yeah.
there's something about, like, I would love to sit down and have some beers with that guy just for, again, I don't, whatever he believes, whatever he wants.
Right.
But he talked about UFO disease, something where somebody may have had a credible story, but then they start adding on and exaggerating, and next thing you know, they went from, like, telling a story like yours, I saw some, I don't know what it is, my buddy called me from across the way, we're still trying to figure that out, to, I have contacts every day with the aliens and they're telling me this, and
Yeah.
it's like, whoa, wait a second. How did we go from
I
that
know who you're
to
talking
this?
about.
Yeah. Yeah.
I know who you're talking about. There's that. Yeah. She
Yeah.
she messaged me, by the way. That was
Oh,
pretty
really?
crazy. Yeah. I think I told you that. Yep. Yep.
Like,
So,
private message you?
mm-hmm. Yep.
No, that I don't, that I didn't
No,
know. I didn't know she private messaged you.
it was recent. I think it was yesterday that she
Okay.
reached out to me. Wasn't much of anything, but I had originally reached out when her first comment came out, and I said, hey, given what you do or what you used to do, you should probably do this a different way. And there's a link to people like yourself and me, veterans, who can report this kind of thing. If it happened during your duty, you should do that. And I talked to her. I didn't. I never got a reply back, but I was basically telling her, like, hey, report to Arrow. Like, they take this kind of information and they will investigate it. They have the clearances to do it. And most people aren't going to agree with that. That's fine. But
Sure.
at the same time, I was just trying to look out for her. Like, I don't want you doing something that could jeopardize your career. So never heard back from her. And then randomly, I don't know, I forgot what she said, but trust me, it wasn't anything of substance. She's not come forward with, oh, she said she got in touch with Tim Burchett. I said, oh, you got in touch with him? She's like, yeah, they called me. I missed the call. I called them back. They missed the call, and I'm waiting for them to call back. I was like, so you didn't get in touch with them. It's phone tag.
Known tag.
And she's
Yeah.
like, well, it's the same thing. And I was like, well, it's really not.
Yeah.
Like, when you have the conversation, let me know. And she's like, well, I'm not going to talk to you anymore. And I was like, okay. Like, I didn't really care either way, but
Yeah.
thanks for the DM, whatever. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
um,
There's a lot of people like that, that again, if they did serve or have served our country, look, it is hard to call them out. It is hard to say those things, especially for me who's not, um, you know, I never worked for the government ever. Again, I'm the last person the government wants doing any duties. But for them, but it's so hard to call that out. I think my position is just kind of maybe call it out once and then I just move on. I don't want to harp
yeah,
on it and kind of, you know what I mean? I saw her say some other things.
yeah.
I was human trafficked and what I was like, wait a second. Now you're saying you were human like, what the fuck are we talking
Oh
about
no.
here? You know what I mean?
What are we doing?
What are we
What are we
doing here?
doing?
I don't know how ridiculous it can get before it's just, what are we doing here? I don't
Yeah,
know. But again, look, I respect anyone's opinion on, you know, people believing things in this community or believing
yeah,
people or whatever. I respect it. I don't judge anyone based on that. All I want is to be allowed to have my opinion, which I feel has been
yeah,
really tried to be forced on me in this community that I've seen behind the scenes, in front of the scene. Like, Patrick, no, you need to think like this, and you need to be doing this on your show, and you need to be talking to this
mm,
person. And I'm going to get so much shit for they're going to say I platformed you and that I'm hurting the
oh
disclosure
yeah,
movement and this and that. But see, I don't care,
hmm,
man, because nobody is going to tell me what to do with this show, and nobody is going to tell me who to talk to. And I'm just as willing to have a conversation as you as I am with Danny Sheehan or Steve
yeah,
Bassett or whoever I have on. But I want to be able to just have conversations. I just don't see anything wrong with that. And if any advice I could give to the UFO community, support more of that. Support more open conversation. Watch how the doors will open wider. The thing you
yeah,
want to happen can happen if you do that. If you allow
yeah,
conversations to happen, because guess what? People can make up their own minds. People can listen to you and people can listen to me about what we just talked about, enjoy the conversations, but walk away going, yeah, and I still believe Jason Sands and I still believe my career. And I said, great. But to the idea of we shouldn't be allowed to exist or have these conversations that's the problem. Let the
yes,
conversations happen. Let people think for themselves. That's my big thing on the show. I present what people are saying, their claims, because I don't have sources. I don't have anonymous sources. I don't like secrets. I don't want people telling me shit. Don't send me documents. Don't send me videos. I don't want any of that. Because one, I don't want someone to send me something that's like actually classified and I'm screwed, like that's my
yeah,
biggest fear. And that's so weird because, my only biggest fear in the restaurant industry is making sure I didn't cut myself on a mandolin, like, so I don't have to worry about this shit or getting burnt by the fryer, like,
right.
you know and or whatever. It's a different sort of realm, so I just stay away from it. But it's just, let these conversations happen. I think it would bring more people into the community to talk about it. I
What
actually think we would get further, in my
we
opinion.
would,
Right, I
yeah.
think so.
So this is I have tried to do this. I'm going to continue to try in X spaces if it's done the right way. The access to information and people that give that information could be so much better if those said UFO personalities, activists, or whatever would take the time to go in the spaces, like with what I did with Hunter Mellon. Hunter, like I have been a critic of Christopher Mellon. There's no secret about that. He even commented saying that I don't know how the world works. I mean, if he sees this interview, he's going to kind of figure out like, oh, maybe he does because he kind of does this for a living.
Sure.
But um, but despite that, Hunter Mellon was treated a certain way on a space, and I'm not going to get into the guy's name. I can't stand him. But even though I disagree with his father and some things he said, I was like, it's not right what happened to him. I want to get him in a space. I want to show him, hey, for one, the UFO community is not representative of what just happened to you. Come in my space, let's talk about it, and then kind of give me an insight about you and your father. And he did that. And actually, it made me realize that Christopher Mellon, like, unlike people say, he didn't come from money. People think that he did. He didn't actually. There was a dynamic with his mother and father. I think got divorced, and Chris grew up pretty blue collar, and Hunter talks about that. And I had those conversations with Hunter, and believe it or not, like to this day, I mean, I haven't heard from him in a while, but he was liking my posts. He was definitely we DM each other every now and then. Like if I sent him something, he'd like, oh, that's really interesting. You know what I mean? Like he wouldn't shut the door on it.
Sure.
He was a very, very knowledgeable kid for his age. And so I got him in there. Those spaces happen. They need to happen more often. They need to stop blocking people. Don't be afraid to come in and ask some critical questions. That all that's going to do is help your credibility. And the things that you say, people are going to be like, oh, well, that makes sense. Like, okay, well, let's move forward from that. That wouldn't be that hard. So I agree with you, and I wish that would happen more often.
Yeah, man. It's like it's like the moment they started putting on music CDs like parental advisory. Don't everybody wanted that motherfucker, right? It's like you ban the book, everybody wants that book, right? So if you try to shut down store that, then people are more inclined to look into it. So just face the music, get in, talk about it. I think the issue is people are always trying to change people's minds, or at least that's the mentality that, maybe the perception. But the truth is, we're better off if we just learn to disagree respectfully, because of course we're not all going to agree on everything and what's being said. And like, that's the issue. Like, just learn to disagree a little bit more and say, okay, I respect your opinion. You've heard mine. And all right, that's it. I mean, there's nothing more there, right? Like it can end there.
Adult conversations.
Yeah. Adult shit.
Just be adults.
Totally,
yeah, man.
Dude. It's like,
let's be
crazy.
Adults.
It's crazy. No, man, I'm glad that you're on Twitter, and I'm glad that you have these spaces, and I've definitely been there to see you. You're very respectful in them, and you're doing something I think you have every right to do. And I think a lot of people probably want the same thing, and they may be just a little more afraid to get in there because then you get associated. Now people want to XYZ, and maybe I'll come back to Twitter at some point, but for my mental health, I'm just staying out of that stuff and focusing on what I'm trying to do here with what I'm doing, right? But who knows? We'll see how.
Take a minute, man. Take a minute. If something pops off, if information comes out, I'll definitely DM you. Just let you know.
Yeah, absolutely. Of course, man. No, you absolutely, for sure.
If you got to edit this, that's fine. My phone's about to die, and I can't get it on a charger. So
no, we're good, man. This is it. This is it here. So look, do you want to tell people where they can connect with you on Twitter? How they can follow you? I'll put a link in the description for sure.
Yeah, it's just if you don't mind, it's the average Chris or Aerotex _space. I believe that's what it is. Just you can find me there. That's pretty much my only social media now. And whatever information that I come across, I just put my assessment on it and then go from there. But like you and I have stated, Patrick, it's up to everybody else. You're going to believe what you want to believe, and that's fine. But when people come to me, and like they have in spaces, and they said, I thought this way, I actually thought you were kind of a jerk, but then you started to make sense, and now I'm starting to see what you're saying. Like, I understand it now. You're pointing out things that normally other people don't point out, inconsistencies, discrepancies, contradictions. Like, those are important when it comes to a field that's based off credibility. That's what I'm trying to do. And I just try to find my truth from there.
Yeah, man. Well said, brother. Well said. Well, look, man, I really appreciate you coming on. We went a little bit over of what we, had kind of talked about, but it was just flowing, man. This was a great conversation. It just flew by.
Yeah.
And I hope to have you on again down the road and have another productive conversation. And just thank you for taking the time, man.
Yes, sir. Hey, reach out anytime. I enjoyed this. This was a fun one.
I live inside my own world of make-believe. Kids screaming in the cradles, profanities. I see the world through ice covered in ink and bleach. Cross out the ones who heard my cries and watched me